Namaskar. Thank you so much for gathering here this evening from all across the country. The primary reason we are here is to celebrate all of you. It's it's a collective effort of everybody in this room that keeps India going and keeps India great. I'm not a very well-educated person, which I confess at the beginning of every speech. My formal education is only till class 12, and whatever I've learned in the University of Life. So, I talk in homilies, I talk from personal experiences. And what I would like to share with you is that, all of us, sometime or the other, we would have cried seeing a movie. कोई भी ऐसा नहीं होगा इस कमरे में जिसने एक फिल्म देख के ना रोया हो कभी लाइफ में. There must be one film that made you cry. I cry easily, so I have cried during several films. The first film that I remember that I cried, I just not cried, I howled through, was in 1974. I was 10 years old then, and the movie was called Roti, Kapda aur Makan. It was a movie by Manoj Kumar, and it was such a true reflection of what was going around us. Extreme inflation, extreme unemployment, extreme hunger, extreme poverty, and we were living all of that. I come from a very poor family. We used to live in Paharganj then, and on a third floor with erratic electricity, no water supply. Sometimes we used to get 1 meal a day, sometimes we used to get 2 meals a day. So I could relate with that film so much. I remember I saw it in Khanla cinema. It was the cheapest cinema in Main Bazaar, Paharganj. I think some 60 paisa was a ticket or something, and I saw that to escape life, but I came back crying and really feeling very miserable. And I was reading the way situation is going economically. Somebody writes that we are possibly heading back into the stagflation of 1970s. I think we are a bit far from that, but the situation that every country faces today is fairly precarious. It's not just India. So let me share with you what is this India Governance Forum and what are we trying to discuss this time in it. As I said, the going is tough for everybody. So whether it's center or state, so let's look at the central government. What is happening today? The unemployment rate is up, inflation is up, interest rates are up and going further, rupee is down, new investments are down, salary jobs are down, growth to consumer demand is down, and capacity utilization is not so good. This is the state of the economy. And on this background, very recently, World Economic Forum, where all Indian companies and all Indian state governments go to attract Indian investments into India, to talk to Indian leaders and give interviews to Indian television channels in Davos. The World Economic Forum said that these are the risk factors for India. Number one is fracture of interstate relations. There is increasing friction between the state and the center, and this is something that needs to be addressed. There is debt crisis in large economies that may impact Indian economy further. Widespread youth disillusionment, it's happening today, trains are being burnt. Failure of technology governance. You've already seen what is happening in crypto, so many people lost money, what is happening in data protection, what is happening in many other areas where, through technology, it is possible to do regulatory capture. And the digital inequality between people who have digital. Like, one of our early ads 10 years back we had done, that 407,000, 40 crore ke kareeb Indians jo hain, gareeb hain. And they are gareeb because, and when you talk to the government and you talk to think tanks, they're poor because they don't have internet, they are poor because they don't have bank account, they're poor because they don't have school. Actually, they're poor because they don't have money. It's very simple. So these inequalities are going to create a big problem for all of us. Average GDP growth is down from 1720 itself, which is pre-COVID. Average GDP growth in that period was 5.7%. The GDP expected is not too great either. So if you look at real GDP growth will catch up with cumulative annual growth rate only by 2035. This is not my data, this is Reserve Bank of India. There is no hope for $5 trillion economy by 2024 at the expected 7.2% average growth rate. Our own prediction is that by 2030 we will barely touch the 5 trillion. Gross capital formation is low and is not expected to improve soon, and a high ICOR, which is high incremental capital to output ratio, points to increased economic inefficiency. So things are like really, really bad. So something needs to be done. On this, it's not that it is bad just for India. This is a situation that practically every country is. We are probably relatively better off, but then we have a lot to catch up with in any case. For the states, the story is tougher. If you look at the state finances, these are precarious. Specifically after GST, the state's ability to tax anything is nothing. I mean, they can't tax anything. Debt to GSDP ratio for states is 33%. In 2021, primary deficit of state, which is the deficit that can be addressed through borrowings, was 5.38%. And 85% of this amount needs to be financed by market borrowing, and the average cost of market borrowing is 6.3% and going up. Social sector is a big resource guzzler. If you look at all states, almost 43% of all expenditure goes towards social sector, and power sector is bleeding state finances. I think we were leading state finances and bleeding it. Employment situation state by state again is precarious. And what is more worrying is the labor rate participation. Half the people who are eligible for employment are not even looking for it. There could be two reasons. One reason is no suitable jobs available. And the second reason, which sounds more true to me, is that over the past 15-20 years, we've created this welfareism or dole economy that people don't really want to work. So if you look at their labor shortages, you look at domestic help not available, look at drivers not available, look at plumbers not available. They want to go back to the villages. Why? Because they'll get Narega wage, they'll get free ration, they'll get free bijli, they'll get free gas, and they have this little piece of land where they'll grow their vegetables, and the little pokhur where they'll catch the fish and eat it. So subsistence economy is back. Why would we want to work? On the other hand, socio-economic stress is building up, wealth inequality. There is large and surplus liquidity that is fueling inflation. Debt to GDP ratio for the country is at a scary 89%. Weighted average cost of government borrowing, I already mentioned, is 6.3. Wealth of top 1% and 10% has grown, while the bottom 50% is reduced. Unemployment rate is quite high, but nearly half the employment workforce does not want employment. So looking at this situation, center, state, what is the policy direction that could possibly help break this impasse? So infrastructure is seen as savior both by the center and state. Huge push on infrastructure to fix economy, employment and GDP ahead of 2024 elections. So you have these mega schemes like Gati Shakti is there, Jal Shakti is there, and so many other schemes. Huge amount of railways where a lot of money is going into infrastructure. The problem with this is cost escalations and time delays. Very large number of projects are delayed, 32% are delayed, 51% projects have actually no proper date of commissioning, and there is 18.18% increase in cost. This in a scenario where there is no investment, there is no capital, the cost of borrowing is up, economy is down, inflation is down. So in that light, what is it that is corrective, that is required? At SKOCH and at India Governance Forum, for 20 years, we've tried to lead this discourse that, cut through the mess and say what are the 5 or 10 problems that need to be addressed and how. And the agenda for India Governance Forum, which is also a curtain raiser today, is cutting time and cost delays of all infrastructure projects. Focus on Gati Shakti and Jal Shakti. These are the two big ones where a lot of money is going. trying to bring ICOR back to 4. Massive technology adoption. Most of these projects are using very poor technology, so some amount of efficiencies can come in. Hardly anyone is using BIM. Most advanced countries where infrastructure and efficiencies are used, they use for every engineering project something called building intelligent modeling, where you just don't do work on 2D or 3D, you also have cost layer, you have time layer, you have a spatial layer, and you can actually control a project end to end, and you can really pinpoint where you are going wrong. It helps you reduce costs, so on and so forth. GIS is very sparingly used in India. Gati Shakti is the first time where GIS is being used through silo busting in a national mode, where all the major national projects are coming together. Mission mode silo busting at both center and state, just the way Gati Shakti has done. Even at the state level, they have to have a coordinated attempt at one governance. Power sector reforms have to be pushed. Competitive welfareism has to be curtailed, because no one has really the money. If you give everything free, then who will pay for it? We must differentiate between what is essential, like food, what is merit, which is like maybe education, and what is desirable welfare. And whatever money we have, we must idly spend only on essential, and then what is left on merit, and desirable should be left. The next problem, as I said, is channelizing youth energy because of unemployment, a lot of other factors, a lot of youth distresses there. So can we use volunteerism? Can we bring some of these things then, because this employment problem is not going tomorrow? So what does the youth do in the meanwhile? So between 15 years to 29 years of age, can we use them for volunteerism? Can we use them for nation building? Can we give them a direction? In what way this youth energy? So can we create something called Yuva Shakti is what we are moving towards. And finally, last but not the least, accelerating financial inclusion. Financial inclusion basically meant defeating poverty, moving up the people up the economic ladder, which meant that credit had to be more easily accessible. There had to be livelihood linkages. There had to be SHG formation. But over the past 10 years, we find that all this is now translated into only giving doles and benefits. So the infrastructure that was created, the BCBF model, the products that were created, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile that was put in place to make sure that credit reaches the needy, actually, and capacity building and removing poverty became a scheme for delivering welfare. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but now that DBT is in place, welfare delivery is happening, it's time to revisit the purpose for JAM, purpose for financial inclusion, and say that how do we make people save, how we give them pensions, how do we give them small savings, how we give them investments, how do we give them credit, and how do we link this credit with livelihoods. So these are very large problems, and that is why India Governance Forum is going to take 4 months this time, and we hope to see you all participate actively in it, and we are able to come back with recommendations that is going to make India great, and hopefully no child will see roti, kapda or makan again and cry. Thank you very much.